I'm Rolene Marks. Welcome to Modiin and Beyond. Join me every Sunday between 3 and 4 on Radio Modiin as we take a look at what's happening in Modiin, Israel, and beyond. It's Tuesday morning, which means it's time for Modiin and Beyond, the only English show on Radio Modiin. And you can find us every Tuesday morning, 10 till 11, where we take a look at what's happening in Modiin, in Israel, and beyond, our shows in the Jewish world. Now, if you want to be on the show, or if you want to advertise on the show, please be in contact with me via my Facebook page at Rolene Marks, or you can WhatsApp me live in studio if you want to ask a question to any of my guests at 052-582-9090. Now, we have a girl power show today, starting off with my first guest, the brilliant Judy Bogan, the founder and project manager of Place to Heal. We're going to find out all about that. We're going to be followed by Anne Hertzberg, legal advisor to NGO Monitor. She and I will be discussing the ludicrous resolution that was voted in at the United Nations General Assembly on Shabbat, because, hey, where else at the United Nations? And we will be ending the show with our entertainment correspondent, Yael Kina. We're going to be unpacking big things, but we're going to be sparing ourselves a very controversial book. But starting off with Judy. Judy, welcome to Modiin and Beyond.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Now, Place to Heal is an extraordinary nonprofit that you have started in Israel, and I'm not going to do an introduction, but I'm going to ask you to tell us exactly what is a Place to Heal.
Well, Place to Heal is an organization that I set up in 2016, and the idea, the vision, the mission is that we take existing spaces in Israeli hospitals, in oncology daycare, and we renovate them and we make them into stress-free, pleasant places, beautiful places for patients to sit while they're receiving chemotherapy.
This is amazing. Now, what sparked the idea? What motivated you to start a Place to Heal?
Well, I was diagnosed with breast cancer myself in January of 2009. We were in the States for 3 years. And following that, I had my treatment in America in a lovely chemo lounge in the doctor's office. And then I came back to Israel, and I realized on one of my first visits to a checkup that I realized that there was work to be done here. With dignity and self-respect and comfort, and because it's very unpleasant. So the more we can do to help them, the better.
So when we talk about cancer patients receiving chemo with dignity and respect, what does a Place to Heal offer that wasn't in existence before? What makes it that much more of a holistic, a better place for somebody who is undergoing treatment to receive it?
So we'll take the space, and the first thing we'll work with is colours. We'll choose a lot of the old hospitals. A lot of the hospitals are decorated in this sort of browny, beigey theme. So far we've worked with blues and colours and yellow. We've also worked with yellow. So we will change the entire colour of the room. We will bring in more comfortable recliners, and the new recliners are slightly more narrow, which allows people more privacy around their treatment area. And instead of curtains, we like to put in glass dividers, which allows the light through, but also allows the patient privacy. And that's the general. It's lighting, it's colour, it's comfort, it's the small things.
The little touches that make a huge difference to somebody who's undergoing a very, very painful, very uncomfortable, and very obtrusive procedure. What about mental health support? Do you offer that as well?
No, we don't offer anything specifically medical.
Mm-hmm.
Everything we offer began based on the fact that I just realized that people like to be in a nice environment. Our offices, our homes, we don't want them to be brown and beige and uncomfortable. So apart from the obvious that, you know, people like to be in beautiful spaces, there is actually a concept. There is a concept of evidence-based healthcare design, and that concept has been proven to relieve pain in patients and stress levels in patients. But as far as anything sort of medical is concerned, we don't do that. We work with the doctors and the nurses and the heads of hospital, so that they can tell us the best way the room should be designed, or how it will help them if they need to take blood, or if they need to get to a patient in an emergency. But as far as actually providing medical care or any mental health support, we don't do that.
Well, this is very interesting because you work in partnership with the caregivers, with the doctors and nurses. So take us through working with a hospital to get them to adopt a place to heal in their facilities.
So, sorry. Initially, I will visit hospitals. If I'm in an area, I'll visit a hospital and just sort of have a quick look. I won't be intrusive or go into anywhere that I'm not allowed to. Most of my connections with hospitals have been made through people who have the connections with the hospitals. I have written to a vast amount of hospitals and have had some responses just from my cold correspondence. But the 3 hospitals I've worked with one, and I've got another 2 we're working with now, and all of them have been connected through people I know. Then we'll go in and I'll talk to the head of hospital about the concept and what we want to do. And then they'll go away and talk to their maintenance, engineering, architect, design team, and they'll put together a costing for the project, and then we'll sit again on it together, and then we'll sign a legal contract between the hospital and Place to Heal. And then there's a timeline for work, and these things can take time. We had a big lull during the pandemic. Because the hospitals were just too overrun. Also we have I lost it.
Take your time. Listen, happens to me all the time.
Yes, so we work with the hospitals. We go in and we have a timeline, and I like to be involved in as much of that as possible. In the first project, I brought in our own designers who were absolutely phenomenal. And in these upcoming projects, the hospital provide the architects and the designers, and they run everything by me as we go along.
So you work from the very conceptual part. What about sponsorships? Because I would imagine that this is something that maybe furniture companies, people with real investment in well-being would want to be invested in.
So we go to the suppliers, and the suppliers, are generally generous with their reductions and discounts and so on for what we need for the room. The designers for the first project did it voluntarily. We also had a very generous donor for the first project who donated the air conditioning. One thing we did decide to do was that following the pandemic, because we had wanted to do an entire unit, but then we realized that hospital management was just too overrun. So we decided to go for smaller projects and more of them to make more of an impact across the country.
And what kind of smaller projects did you go for?
So at the moment, we're doing a project in the Safra Children's Hospital in Tel Ashomer, which the actual content of it we're not revealing at this point.
Because I was going to ask you, what is the difference between providing this kind of environment for children than adults?
So the environment for children is very much children orientated. We're working on something really special, which I hope will be finished really soon. And I work in the Safra Hospital. I work with the head of the hospital, Hagit Spiegel, and I work with the head of the educational centre. So they help me understand the needs of the children and what would make the children's experience much easier. In our second project, which we hope will be in Hadassah Mount Scopus, Hatzofim, we will be doing a room for blood test pre-treatment so that people don't actually have to sit in their treatment chairs for the 2 to 3 hours it will take to get the results to see if they can have their chemo that day. And then it has to be made up at the pharmacy. So it's quite a long day. So we're doing a room, we're taking a space and we're doing a room where they will give their blood and then they won't actually be having to sit in the room for an extra 2 to 3 hours that day. They'll be able to sit in a much nicer place to give their blood.
Because let's not kid, stress is a major exacerbator of cancer. So I think it's a real mitzvah to be doing everything you can in your power to lessen those stress levels for patients who I'm sure so greatly appreciate it. Now, for companies out there or anybody who wants to get involved, how do they go about doing that?
Well, if they go onto our website, which is www.p2h.co.il, there are ways to contact me through the website. There's my phone number, my email, and I'm always happy to speak to people directly. Meet people one-on-one. I'll go anywhere to meet people if they're interested in what we do. And also there are options there to donate. There are different options. There's also options of naming and options of honoring and so on and so forth. But I'm, always available if people want to talk to me about.
Let's give out those website details again. So it's www.p2h.co.il. That's www.p2h.co.il. Place to Heal. We have the founder and head project manager, Judy Bogan, in studio with us. Judy, if you have any parting words for any medical professionals out there who may be listening, what would you or your advice be for them right now?
Well, I would definitely say that the healthcare that I have received here and the healthcare that I see here is fantastic, outstanding, and the doctors and nurses that I've come into contact with through my work have been fabulous. I would just say that, give me that 15 minutes to explain what we do, and we'll try to be as little of an intrusion on their day-to-day as possible. And we only want to work together and do great things and help people. That's really what it's all about for me. It's about helping people.
Judy Bogan, the founder and head project manager of Place to Heal, a really, really extraordinary nonprofit and founded by one of our own homegrown talents. We're going to take a short music break after this. Your blood pressure is sure to be raised as we discuss another UN resolution.
Monday.com makes gas great again. הבית שלך זה הלב שלנו, להנדה, תתרגלו להגיד מכאן, להנדה, הבית שלך זה הלב שלנו, תתרגלו להגיד מכאן, להנדה.
שלטק מודיעין הוא מתחם עבודה שיתופי ליזמים וחברות. בשלטק תמצאו עמדות עבודה אישיות, משרדים סגורים, חדרי ישיבות מרווחים, מרחבי הדרכה משודרגים. בקיצור, כל מה שעסק בצמיחה צריך. שלטק, עסקים שגדלים יחד.
מחפשים חוויה משפחתית שוברת שגרה? דייט מוצלח ורומנטי? חוות צהלה מזמינה אתכם לרכיבת שטח חווייתית במיוחד בתוך הנוף קוצר הנשימה של עמק איילון. חוות צהלה, תתכוננו להתאהב. לפרטים 055-662-6773.
טרייד סטיישן, אפליקציית המסחר זוכת הפרסים. לסחור רק עם הטוב ביותר. אליט פלטפורמס, המקבצה הפיננסית שלך.
ברוכות הבאות למכללה האקדמית לחינוך תלפיות בחולון. מכללה שהיא בית. בבית שלנו יש מרצים עם תשוקה לחינוך. סגל מנהלי עם תודעת שירות גבוהה. והמון יחס אישי לצד מצוינות אקדמית. אלפי בוגרות המכללה המובילות את שדה החינוך בישראל היא העדות הטובה ביותר שמכללת תלפיות הינה המקום הנכון ביותר עבור מי שרוצה להצליח, להשפיע ולחנך את דור העתיד. כי החינוך מתחיל מהבית. לצד המתקנים הפיזיים המתקדמים, המערכים הטכנולוגיים והקמפוס המתחדש, אנו מציעים לכן 5 מסלולי לימוד לתואר ראשון. חינוך לגיל הרך, חינוך יסודי, חינוך על יסודי, חינוך מיוחד ואומנות. כך שכל סטודנטית תוכל לבחור את המסלול המתאים ביותר עבורה. במכללת תלפיות תמצאי את כל היתרונות במקום אחד, יחס אישי ותוכנית מותאמת אישית. קמפוס בוטיק חכם וחדשני, מרחק הליכה מתחנת הרכבת, כל זה במרכז הארץ. כולנו כאן בשבילך, מאמינים בך. צוות מכללת תלפיות.
מכללת תלפיות לחינוך, ללמוד לתואר ראשון עם החברות שלי בדרך שלי. זו תלפיות שלי.
I'm Rolene Marks. Welcome back to Modiin and Beyond right here on Radio Modiin. And just a reminder, if you also want to advertise on Modiin and Beyond or Radio Modiin, please be in contact with us either via our Facebook page, Radio Modiin, or hey, you can have a chat to me via Facebook. And if you want to ask any of our guests questions, be in touch with me on 052-582-9090. And now we cross to the legal advisor of NGO Monitor, live from Jerusalem and Herzberg. We're going to talk about a resolution that was passed at the United Nations General Assembly over the weekend. Now, this very, very controversial resolution will essentially call on the international community to be able to go to the ICC, that's the International Criminal Court, and appeal to them to weigh in on or investigate what they call settlements, annexation, and occupation. As always, the United Nations has an obsessive focus on the state of Israel. They seem to have forgotten conflicts in other places around the world. So we welcome back to Modiin and Beyond, Anne Herzberg. Anne, good morning.
Hi, how are you?
Good, and yourself. Good to have you back. So, this ridiculous resolution, which essentially pulls everybody's focus onto Israel at a time when, I don't know, women's rights are trampled on in Iran. We have a war in Ukraine that's just getting more and more offensive and appalling, conflicts around the world. But yet again, here we are, little Israel on focus. What does this resolution essentially say?
So, what happened was the General Assembly passed a resolution last week. There is something known as the International Court of Justice. And under the rules of the International Court of Justice, it's normally procedures between states, disputes between states, and you have to be a member of the ICJ in order for the court to hear your disputes. But in the rules of the ICJ, certain bodies of the UN, like the General Assembly, can refer to the ICJ for advisory opinions. So your listeners may recall the 2004 ICJ opinion on the wall, as they called it. So this resolution is now calling for a new advisory opinion, quote unquote, on what they deem to be prolonged occupation, annexation, and self-determination for the Palestinians, and to rule on Israel's, quote, racist and discriminatory practices.
Because, of course, there wouldn't be discriminatory or racist practices anywhere else in the world for them to weigh in on. Now, what does this mean in practical terms? Because Israel's not a signatory to the Rome Statutes. What does this mean practically on the ground?
So I should just clarify, the Rome Statute actually goes to the International Criminal Court, and this is separate. The ICJ is different from the International Criminal Court. They're completely separate entities. So this is dealing with the International Court of Justice. So it's not a criminal court. It doesn't have the ability to, levy jail sentences or impose fines under its advisory opinion. And even under the regular mechanisms, they can make rulings about states having to pay other states money. But again, it's up to the states themselves to actually follow the judgments. So I'm not sure in this case, in the previous opinion from 2004, Israel did not participate. It wasn't a member of the court. It was a completely politicized, exploitative move by the Palestinians and the Arab League. They didn't have anything to do with the case. They argued the court didn't have jurisdiction. And I assume Israel will do the same thing here. So the practical impact is, of course, I highly expect there will be a terrible decision from the court because it's a biased, when it comes to Israel, it's a biased entity, and it's going to be influenced by authoritarian states and from NGO, BDS groups. Well, even though NGOs can't directly participate, they will certainly influence the opinion. And what I expect will happen will be similar to what happened with the wall opinion. It will be used primarily in the diaspora for campus BDS resolutions, for other types of boycotts, and increased anti-Semitism, and just to increase, anti-Israel and anti-Semitic opinions across the world. So I think that's going to be the primary imports of it. I don't think on the ground here it's going to make too much difference.
annexation and accusations of racism. This morning we had Itamar Ben-Gvir ascending the Temple Mount, which could be seen by many, both domestic and international, as inflammatory. Probably not the smartest move as a national security minister that he could have done. How does this bode for Israel trying to make its case on the world stage?
So it definitely complicates matters, that's for sure. It doesn't help. I think having extremist views like that in our governments is not good. And I, we can hope for a change in that, but that's, for another conversation. But I do think, at least in this area, in the UN arena and these international mechanisms, what's important is that it didn't matter who was in the government. This resolution was proposed with the previous government in power, so it didn't matter. It's the same language. And I think what's important to also note is the language of the resolution is conclusory. So it's already presuming there are racist laws, there's occupation, there's annexation, there's violations of self-determination. These are already decided in the resolution. So it's already a foregone conclusion. It's already determined ahead of time. So there's nothing for the courts to even look at, because what they got is already determined, and they're just going to pile on what was already determined by the General Assembly. So at least in the case of the ICJ, it's kind of irrelevant who is in the current government, though it certainly doesn't help matters, and it's going to add, it'll bolster or just make more and more, add to make the opinion even more inflammatory.
So basically more work for people like you and I, who spend our days trying to put out these fires.
Exactly.
Now, in a couple of weeks' time, the United Nations will observe International Holocaust Remembrance Day. This is a day actually set aside and enshrined by them to remember the Holocaust and to educate against further hatred of Jews and other minorities. Is it not just preposterous that they can't see that this obsessive focus on the state of Israel, the singling out of Israel? A report this morning in the Times of Israel that the UN has focused more on Israel with more resolutions than any other country at a time when we've got a war in Ukraine, we've got an uprising in Iran, we've got Uyghur Muslims in custody in concentration camps in China, but the focus is yet again on the tiny, teeny state of Israel, and they cannot see the irony in talking about combating anti-Semitism and yet singling out the Jewish state for opprobrium.
Yeah, I mean, it's totally hypocritical. The UN has done very little on anti-Semitism. There was one report put out a few years ago by a very earnest rapporteur condemning anti-Semitism. He got very little support within the UN frameworks for his report. The UN supposedly has an anti-Semitism ombudsman, to promote combating anti-Semitism within the UN. He's done virtually nothing in that position, and he's had it now for 3 years. So oftentimes the Holocaust programs simply universalize the Holocaust and really take out the unique aspect towards Jews regarding it. And then it's just also par for the course with the highly disproportionate number of resolutions against Israel. And now I think this ICJ case will be like the 7th mechanism or something that's going on now against Israel within the UN currently. So think about all the resources that goes towards that. And I would just call out, let's say, Europeans in particular that continue to fund these mechanisms. They vote against them, but then once they're in place, they do nothing to counter them. They're so focused on process that quality does not matter to them. So it doesn't matter to them who's members of these commissions, the types of things they're involved in. It's simply the fact that it exists. And I think that's immoral, and it would be nice to see some new moral leadership from the Europeans in particular, which alongside the US, which at least does make a stand and has legislation pending to cut funding to these mechanisms, that they'll take a stand that they're not going to put up with bad quality institutions anymore. It's not enough that they exist. They have to be good institutions. It's far more damaging to have such institutions existing and having them be bad quality.
Well, thank goodness
than having no institution.
Well, thank goodness we have organizations like NGO Monitor and fierce and fabulous people like you who are really on the vanguard of fighting on behalf of not just the state of Israel, but for global Jewry. Can you tell our listeners and viewers where they can find NGO Monitor and how they can follow your work?
Sure. So our website is www.ngo-monitor.org. So you can go to our website where we have lots of reports and information. You can go to our Twitter accounts. I'm Ann Hertzberg 14 on Twitter, and NGO Monitor has a Twitter account. So those are probably the best places to look for our materials.
Ann Hertzberg, legal advisor for NGO Monitor, and really a warrior in what is probably one of the most hostile battlefields against the state of Israel. Thank you so much for being on Modiin and Beyond. After this music break, guaranteed to get you up and dancing, we're going to talk entertainment with our favorite entertainment correspondent, Yael Kina.
Let's see it. Get your money for nothing. Let your chicks free. We got some people so microwave oven. Custom kitchen delivery. We got some movies. Refrigerators. We got some movies. Color TV. That ain't working. That's the way you do it. You play the guitar on the MTV. That ain't working. That's the way you do it. Money for nothing and the chicks for free. Money for nothing. Chicks for free. Money for nothing. Chicks for free. Look at it, look at it.
Dire Straits, Money for Nothing. What a classic. And a super classic, and we've missed her for a couple of weeks, is our entertainment correspondent, Yael Kinau. Welcome back, fabulous.
Hello, friends. Even I succumbed to the trend, albeit late, and got COVID. But hopefully I have my strength to address the pertinent issues of entertainment.
Well, we hope you are feeling much, much better. I don't think we're going to be in for a quiet year entertainment-wise, and we certainly ended on a very, very sad note. Some real icons passing away last week. His Holiness Pope Benedict passing away at the age of 95. The football legend Pele passing away also in his 80s, 82. And the grand doyen of journalism, the founder of The View, but we won't hold that against her, Barbara Walters, a real trailblazer, especially for women journalists, passing away at the age of 83.
Of 93, so they've had good lives.
Lord.
You know, when people of a certain age pass away, it isn't to take away from the sadness of the fact that they're gone, but when I look at Barbara Walters or the Pope, which I don't know that they need to be mentioned in the same sentence, but or our beloved Queen who passed last year. I guess technically not my Queen, wrong country, but you know what I mean. When they die in their 90s or after a life very well lived, I think there's comfort in that. And for Barbara Walters, she was a trailblazer for women, starting, you know, in various roles, but then being the first female co-anchor of the evening news and making $1 million at that, which was unprecedented at the time. And, you know, Oprah Winfrey has said, without Barbara Walters, there wouldn't have been me or any other women that you see on the news. So she did end her life more with pop culture and The View, but there were times that she was interviewing, you know, Yasser Arafat and Monica Lewinsky and a lot of, you know, anyone who was a pop culture interview that people really wanted to get, and she was able to participate in this what up until then had mostly been a boys' club. Now, as often happens, I think particularly for women in various businesses, she wasn't considered very nice. Now, I don't know that people spend a lot of time worrying about whether male newscasters are pleasant or not, but she was mocked consistently on Saturday Night Live. There was a character making fun even of a bit of a speech impediment she had, and she had a strange way of pronouncing the letter R, which is unfortunate if that's in your name twice. So she was made fun of and didn't appreciate that. She also has said later in life that she regretted not having more children. She did adopt one daughter, Jacqueline. She was married 4 times. Nice Jewish girl from a Jewish family, and ended her life in Manhattan in a fabulous penthouse surrounded by family. I'm okay with that.
Well, she certainly lived a phenomenal life. She was known for her incredible specials. As you said, she would interview everybody from Fidel Castro to then mogul Donald Trump. Maybe she predicted him becoming a president, to royalty, to people like Yasser Arafat. When somebody like the Queen passes away, we always assume the Queen was kind of immortal. And given that she was working 2 days or up to 2 days before her passing at the age of 96, we didn't see Barbara Walters for quite a while. So her passing doesn't come as a huge shock. But for all of us ladies who work in journalism, in broadcasting, we have to thank her for really busting through that glass ceiling and blazing a trail for all of us. But somebody who I consider a trailblazer, Celine Dion, whether we like her music or not featured on Rolling Stone's top 200 singers, but Ofra Hazza was, which of course she should rightly be there.
A little unexpected, to say the least, for both of those that you mentioned. Celine Dion, I would think especially, and we covered her recently, coming out with admitting that she's been diagnosed with a disease that affects her ability to sing and perform. But regardless of that, I thought inarguably one of the best singers in the world, and yet the Rolling Stones did not include her in the list of 200 singers. There was room for her there, and it had Taylor Swift, and there was a lot of people on there. There's some discussion, although again, there were 200 people, so I don't know that it's so relevant, but people have made note that the top 10 are all women of color, not women, people of color, and that was a conscious decision of Rolling Stone and of lots of different publications and lists and competitions that were tended to be very white. And so, Aretha Franklin, Whitney Houston, Beyonce, you can't argue they're not there because of the color of their skin. And I don't think that's the reason that Celine was not included, but I don't know what the reason would be. I'm glad that our Ofra Hatza benefited from this new inclusive angle and was listed at number 186, still excellent, with reference to her incorporating Yemenite sounds. Imnin Alu was her famous song that made her popular all over the world, which was very unexpected at the time. And it's nice that she's getting credit for being popular, for not just in Israel, but across the world. She died at age 42 of AIDS, which was very shocking at the time. And she had represented Israel in the Eurovision with the song Chai. Very popular singer. I didn't know Rolling Stones knew she existed, and I'm glad that they did, and maybe it will get some people Googling and YouTubing her now.
Well, in a nod to my fondness for Gothic music, Ofra Hazza singing on the Sisters of Mercy's Temple of Love is a classic. But yeah, she passed away from AIDS, which she had contracted from her boyfriend, who was not only promiscuous, but also rumored to have used intravenous drugs. May her memory be for a blessing. But somebody who also is making us all worry is the Marvel actor Jeremy Renner. A horrific accident. Do we have a latest update there?
We do. I will just preface by giving a little bit of information on who he is, because frankly, Marvel isn't in my wheelhouse, and I wasn't so aware that the man had been nominated for 2 Academy Awards. He's most well known for his roles in The Avengers and Captain America. He's a 51-year-old actor who was in his home in Lake Tahoe, which is an upscale area that, especially during the holidays, snowing, beautiful estate, and he got terribly injured. It's a little unclear as to why he was using an industrial major snowplow just to clear there's been major snowstorms in America this year, which was being marketed as a lovely white Christmas, but has had various implications in terms of flight and travel, and this horrific accident. So it appears he somehow ran over himself, and he's starting a second surgery today. There was a tremendous amount of blood loss. Someone came to his help quite quickly, and with a tourniquet, basically saved his life. And at this point, He's in critical but stable condition. It looks like it's going to be a journey for his recovery, and we wish him all the best. A terrible freak accident, unexpected.
Well, Jeremy Renner and his family, we wish you a refuah shlema. We wish you everything of the best. And Yael Kina, we have missed you. We want you to feel 100% better. This has been Modiin and Beyond with me, Rolene Marks, every Tuesday between 10 and 11. Thank you to Pe'er Atias putting up with my anxiety and also making sure that all goes according to plan. Don't forget to join me next week. I'm out of here, and I'm going to leave you with this little song.
Time goes by so slowly. 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 Every little thing that you say or do, I'm hiding up on you. Way before you come, baby, night and day. I'm tired of waiting on you. Time goes by so slowly for those who wait. No time to hesitate. Those who run seem to have all the fun. I'm caught up. I don't know what to do. Time goes by so slowly. Time goes by so slowly. Time goes by so slowly. I don't know what to do. Every little thing that you say or do, I'm hiding up on you. Way before you come, baby, night and day. I'm tired of waiting on you. Every little thing that you say or do, I'm hiding up on you. Way before you come, baby, night and day. I'm tired of waiting on you. Ring, ring, ring goes the telephone. The lights are on, but there's no one home. Tick, tick, tock, it's 1:45, and I'm done. I'm hanging up on you. I can't keep on waiting for you. I know that you're still hesitating. Don't cry for me, 'cause I'm flying away. You'll wake up one day, but it'll be too late. Every little thing that you say or do, I'm hiding up on you. Way before you come, baby, night and day. I'm tired of waiting on you. Every little thing that you say or do, I'm hiding up on you. Way before you come, baby, night and day. I'm tired of waiting on you. Every little thing, I'm hiding up on you. Wait before you come, wait before you come. I'm tired of waiting on you.